Hello. Welcome to Facebook Live on the Nails Magazine webpage, or Nails Magazine Facebook page, as you will. We'll give people a minute or so to get a chance to hop on. Thanks for joining me. As you can see, Rosie has got one nail polished Sharpie red. If you want to go ahead and color a nail on your practice hand with Sharpie. And if you're going to be working on a real person, if you want to go ahead and polish one nail in a dark color. We'll work on our practice hand first to get a little bit of courage, and then we'll graduate to the real person. If you would, please go ahead and share the broadcast with your nail friends so that everyone has a chance to get on before we get started. It's been a little over a minute, so let me glove up and we'll get going. Just a reminder, you want to make sure that you're keeping the piece in here to keep the dust out when you're not using the Efile. I'm going to twist and pull my piece out. Set him aside, and we're going to start with a barrel-shaped bit, ideally a medium grit. Remember that you don't want to push the bits all the way in. You want to give them a little bit of rotating room. So I'm going to space that out just a bit and lock it into place. It's ready to go with a little bit of space for spinning. To start with on the practice hand, there's one nail that's been colored with a Sharpie. You can do this on top of any product that you want. We're mostly going to be practicing the motions of the filing itself before we start on the real person, so that it's a little less scary to work on the actual person. I'm going to turn my Efile on about halfway. And then remember in previous broadcasts and from the class that we're supposed to go from right to left if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, then there are actually left-handed bits and you would want to look into those. So I'm just going to start, and remember each part of the barrel of the bit goes to a different segment of the nail. So that front part of the barrel is for the front of the nail. The center of the barrel towards the center of the nail. And a really soft touch, not pressing into the fingernail, just letting it slide across, basically balancing the Efile handle piece in your hand. I'm leaving a pretty good perimeter around the edges because I would want to make sure if this were a real person that I wasn't getting into the skin. Once you've gone over your practice hand to kind of get a feel for going across the skin, let's take this bit out. I'm going to dust it off first. Unlock it. Pull it out. And we're going to use a cone-shaped bit for around the edges because it's tapered down. And later this week on the blog, I'll have a chart for Efile bits for beginners. and which ones that we should leave to a more advanced user.
How do you order?
There are several different companies that carry bits. The two that I'm the most familiar with at the moment are Atwood Industries and Kupa Incorporated. Turning the Efile back to the halfway point. And if you notice, I've got some help for the comments. It's BFF Mel. Hey, Mel.
Hi.
You can find her on Tips of the Trade on Facebook. We're going to start on...
So you're going to show on a real person in a few minutes.
Thank you. I'm going to show on a real person here in just a couple minutes. I wanted to get comfortable before I hopped onto a real person. Going to start and do the perimeter. And the color represents product, as if I were finish filing product. This is a way that you can learn control with hand filing or e-filing. How did practicing with the eggs go? Did any of you try that? All right. I haven't put any injuries onto Rosie, so now I think I'm ready to give a real person a try. And this is where it's great to have your BFF be your model, because hopefully they will forgive you if you're not perfect.
Absolutely.
We're sticking the barrel bit back in. Remember to dust the bits off before you take them out so that you're less likely to get dust down in there. Now lock that into place, and we're going to move Rosie out of the way. Real person. Can I zoom in on Facebook Live? Yes, there we go. Get a little bit closer. And just in case you can see this little bit right there, that is an already existing injury. I can do injuries all by myself without getting credit for one that I did not do. We're going to turn the E-file back onto medium. Using a barrel bit in a medium grit. Medium grit is ideal for beginners. I'm going to use this back part of the bit for the front of the nail, the center of the bit for the center of the nail, and the front part of the bit towards the back edge of the nail. Making sure that we stay on camera. Okay, it feels much less scary on a real person actually than the practice hand, which is bizarre. And you do on a real person have to take into account the curve of the nail. So make sure you're kind of going up and over with your sideways motion to leave the curve in place. Are some of you practicing as we speak? You kind of giving it a try? If I can do this on a real person, you can do this on a real person. Just use a really gentle touch. Make sure you're not gripping your E-file. It's really easy to grip a hold of the E-file really tight because you're nervous. So make sure you're letting the E-file handpiece rest on your fingers and not grip it. And you can see there's a liquid and powder enhancement under this polish, so I'm not as likely to hurt her natural nails. That way I only have the fear factor of skin to deal with. And I've left the perimeter for that tapered bit. I think we could probably go ahead and get this front edge with the barrel bit. We might not need the tapered bit out here since there's not any skin. The barrel bit is ideal for debulking as a beginner as well as for taking off length as a beginner. Shutting the handpiece off, make sure you dust your bit. Pulling the barrel bit out and switching to a cone. Making sure we leave spinning space and locking it into place. Going back to halfway on the Efile for speed.
You have a comment, I'm usually doing from the cuticle free edge of the nail. Isn't that right? From the cuticle
usually that back to front or front to back is personal preference. So if you generally go from here to here instead of here to here, that's okay. I started out here because I was nervous. And if I was going to have the file catch and jump because I pushed too hard because I was nervous, I'd rather do it out here where there wasn't any skin. So if you normally are used to using the E-file, you absolutely could start back here if that's what you are used to doing or what you are more comfortable with. I'm going to turn the fingers so that I can see what I'm doing and pull the skin back out of the way. And then start going around that edge. It helps if you guys can see, sorry about that. And you are supposed to use, ooh.
It's fine. She's fine.
Okay, so what happened is I wasn't tipped at the right angle. I actually caught it on the side, and so that's what made it jump and skip around. So I'm going to turn the finger so that I can see it better versus the camera. And the more comfortable you get with it, you are supposed to use longer strokes versus the short little chicken jumpy strokes that I'm using.
I have a question. Could you use the e-filing method to remove gel polish on natural nails?
Personally, I would not remove gel polish from natural nails unless you had a layer of gel underneath there to protect the natural nail because it's so easy to go through. However, some really advanced users are able to do that and stay away from the natural nail. So it's going to depend on your skill with the e-file. When you start to hear that more of a little grinding sound, that's an indication you're starting to push on the file, that you're not just letting it balance. So make sure that you're listening for that sound, and if you hear it, ease up on the e-file. I'm shaking. This is really intimidating if you've never done e-file on a person before. And surprisingly, it's more intimidating when it's your friend because you don't want to hurt your friend.
I will say for the record, I can barely feel this.
Yay. Deep breath. So this area seems to be the hardest for me. It seems to be the most awkward to go backwards like that. So what I'm going to do to make it less awkward is actually tip her around so that the direction I'm taking the e-file isn't so awkward for me.
Which means your client will probably have to sit with their elbow in the air.
And obviously an advanced e-file user is going to do this really quickly in nice, long, smooth strokes. So keep in mind as you practice to work towards the smooth strokes. And I'm going to call uncle on that last little bit. There's a little bit of polish right up against the edge, and I don't know that I am quite prepared to get that close to the skin. So personally, I would do the finish filing over the whole thing like that, or remove the gel polish from the whole thing like that, and then come in with the hand file to reseal the edges before reapplying product.
And you have comments that say no need to stress and you're doing a very nice job.
Thank you. It's very interesting to learn this with an audience, I'll tell you, for sure.
And you have kind of a question.
Yes.
From Gwen, I have a safety bit around the cuticle, but when I do my own nails, I find it gets hot too quickly. Am I pushing too hard?
Yes. A lot of times if you are pushing, listen for that slightly grinding sound, because that's an indication that you're pushing too hard. And then if you're getting kind of that heat, make sure you're not pushing too hard, but also that you continue moving. If you leave the E-file in the same place for a while, it's going to get pretty warm. Also, something that I learned from Lisa at Nail Camp this last weekend was if you are using certain types of bit, they can get hot really quickly. And I can't remember the exact thing off the top of my head, but I have lots of notes that I'm going to compile in a blog about bits this week.
I have one other question. Hi, Just Joining. Why are you filing off polish as opposed to using polish remover?
So this was to give an example of where the bits were at when they hit the nail. And by filing off the polish, you could see easily where the E-file was hitting because the polish was disappearing. So it could be either showing how you would file gel polish off of enhancements so that you could do a rebalance, or it could be the way that you did some debulking. It could also be the way that you were doing finish filing. So by having the polish there, it gave you the opportunity to see where the E-file hit because the polish disappeared.
We intentionally used red because it was a good visual.
Yes, we intentionally used red so you could see it really well. Mel was nice enough to polish it for me before I got here so it would be dry. Do you have any more questions?
Nothing so far.
Oh, no bleeding. It's red polish. Any other questions? Oh, cool. So Tracy is mentioning in the comments that Young Nails makes a safety bit. I have heard of several companies making safety bits. I need to look into those and see what I can find and try out. Allie, I was using a barrel bit and a cone bit. And I'll be posting a blog later this week that gets a little more specific into bits and what are good bits for beginners. Liz is asking, how long does a set normally take to file off? Liz, do you mean filing off the gel polish on a set of enhancements? Okay, everyone thinks it's blood. Let's take it off the polish remover.
Oh, it's actually shellac. So you'll need to file.
Oh, it's shellac. Okay. Hand file.
Back there. Against the wall.
This work?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So just so that everybody realizes it's just gel polish, just really quick, gonna whip that last little bit off. Ta-da! So I did not make BFF Mel bleed. Yay! Okay. Allie, these happen to be bits from Kupa. You also can get bits from Atwood Industries, and someone else mentioned bits from Young Nails. I'm not sure if any bit fits any E-file. So far, this E-file is a Mani Pro from Kupa, and I have been able to get the bits from Kupa as well as the bits from Atwood Industries to fit in it. So it's my understanding that bit sizes are pretty universal. Okay, Liz, yes, to file off the gel polish, those of you that are experienced E-file users, Liz would like to know about how long it takes you to E-file off your gel polish when you are used to using it. Amy, good question. The reason that I went from side to side when filing off the gel polish is the classes that I've taken so far is they're showing to work from side to side, and since I'm right-handed, they suggest working right to left so that you're less likely to get any skipping, and for the E-file consistency, is that the word I'm looking for? For consistency. Why are the nails blue? She actually has a purple sparkle enhancement with a clearish tip.
Custom blended liquid and powder.
It's a custom blended set of liquid and powder. Melanie, to e-file it off, if you were using, let's say she came in from somewhere and had really thick nails, the e-file would help to debulk the nails really quickly. Or even if you were just doing a rebalance, it would help do a quick rebalance or a quick removal of gel polish. If you've ever hand filed gel polish off of enhancements, it takes quite a while, and the e-file could be a really fast, easy way of doing it. Oh, thank you, Shelly. Erica also is another company with bits. And Max, okay, Max Estrada also has pink bits. So there are several places you can get bits, and I will definitely look back through these comments before posting the blog on bits so that I can post links for everyone to check out the bit locations. Any other questions before we sign off? I did have a question about my hand that I use in videos from a previous video. So this is the trainer hand that I happen to use with all the joints. Oh, Amy, that's a good point. Amy says when she worked with NSI, they said to work down the nail and that she finds it easier to not catch the skin. So I'll have to do some investigating and see what the difference is between going down the nail versus across the nail. Cindy, that is a question that we've asked some of the viewers, and we're waiting to see back from some of the experienced users about how fast they can file gel polish off. How long did it take you?
To file, I can usually do all 10 fingers in maybe 20 minutes if I'm doing myself.
No, do you do it in the salon?
Sometimes.
How long does it take? 10 minutes? If it takes 20 on yourself?
Yeah, 10, 15.
Okay.
I'm more careful on a client than I am on myself.
Right. We're guessing roughly 10 to 15 minutes to file gel polish off of a client. Allie, I personally don't use bits for cuticle care. Tracy, yes, sanding bands are great. I am big on sanding bands. That's actually what I normally use. It's my little doodad. So normally I would use a sanding band because that's what I'm comfortable with. However, on the last broadcast, I learned that the metal barrels are actually better for removing gel polish because I found that the sanding band kept skipping in the gel polish, and these did work a lot smoother.
I would agree with that.
Oh, thanks. We do have someone that commented it's easier to keep the shape when you go side to side versus from the back to front or down, however you want to say it. For cuticle care, I actually use a cuticle removal product, and I have a tool called a curette, C-U-R-E-T-T-E, and I find that the curette is extremely effective for cuticle work. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join the broadcast. I will download it and post it on YouTube so that you will be able to find it in the future. I will also get a blog out to you this week with information on where you can get bits as well as what bits are ideal for beginners. I have the top 5 that beginners should try. Thank you again for joining, and I hoped you learned as much as I did.